Every time my body feels lighter, I always hear a soft, sweet, and clingy female voice in my ear, not knowing where it comes from, constantly talking. I saw a planet appear on a three-dimensional virtual screen, which then quickly disappeared. I also saw the schematic of our progress, which sometimes showed a zigzag path. When I close my eyes, I feel like the UFO disappears, and I'm left alone in the dark void of space, falling at a constant speed into an infinite abyss. This feeling frightens me, and sometimes I have to open my eyes. Once they started up the spaceship, everything was fine. The robots began operating the spaceship while monitoring the three-dimensional virtual screen, and we started chatting. I was very curious about this spaceship, or rather, I became interested in the UFO we were on. The spaceship we're on is what we Earthlings often refer to as a UFO, right? Yes. UFOs move very fast, don't they? I saw in one of our magazines that a UFO, at its fastest, can travel at the speed of light, which is 300,000 kilometers per second. Is that true? Yes, the UFO moves at the speed of light when it's at its fastest, said Soodle. The UFO has three states of space-time. The first is a zero-mass excited state, where the UFO's rest mass is zero. It has a defined moving mass, and it always moves at the speed of light. This state is actually similar to the space-time state of light in nature. The second state is a quasi-excited state with small mass. In this state, the UFO's mass is only about 1/10,000th of a gram according to your Earth standards. It can be stationary, can fly at any speed less than the speed of light, can hover in the air on Earth, and can instantly be excited into the zero-mass excited state. The third state is the normal state, where the UFO is completely stationary, the mass variation system is turned off, and it has a fixed mass like any other ordinary object. Your UFOs are so amazing. What is the principle behind their flight? It must be very complex and profound, right? The principle of UFO flight is actually very simple. It can be described in just one sentence in your Chinese language, Soodle said. Any object in the universe, if you make its mass zero, will suddenly start moving at the speed of light the moment it reaches zero. This is the principle of a light-speed UFO. The principle behind UFOs is so simple. This was completely unexpected. But how can you make an object's mass zero? I think that's the real challenge. There are two fundamentally different types of motion in nature: quantitative change and qualitative change. Ordinary motion is a quantitative change, which was well described by your Earth scientists Newton and Galileo. The motion of your airplanes and cars on Earth follows the principle of conservation of momentum. Momentum equals mass times velocity, and force is the rate of change of momentum over time. Your airplanes can only fly within the Earth's atmosphere. However, on our planet, momentum is calculated as vector light speed minus the object's velocity multiplied by the object's mass p equals mcv, where p is the momentum, m is the mass, v is the velocity, c is the vector light speed. The direction of vector light speed can change, but its magnitude is constant, equal to the scalar light speed c. Differentiating this momentum with respect to time, they directly translated this as taking the derivative gives rise to four types of forces: F equals cv dm / dt plus m dc / dt dv / dt, where d is the differential operator and t is time, which are the four fundamental forces of the universe. The force on an object is also the rate of change of its momentum over time. However, for a UFO, only its mass changes over time. The F equals cv dm / dt part is the dynamic equation for the UFO. When the UFO's mass first starts to decrease, its velocity remains constant. When its mass decreases to zero, its velocity suddenly changes to the speed of light. The change in the UFO's speed is abrupt. It can instantly jump from zero to the speed of light. The UFO's speed only has two values: its initial speed and the speed of light, with no continuous change, explained Norton. Our UFO's motion follows another type of motion, qualitative change, meaning the UFO's mass can change over time. On our planet, this is called mass change motion. When the UFO's mass decreases to zero, it will automatically continue to move at the speed of light without any additional force, unless an internal or external factor changes this state of motion. Any object that is stationary relative to us has its surrounding space moving outward at the vector light speed, which is the fundamental reason why objects have mass and charge. Mass represents the number of displacements of light speed movement in the space surrounding the object within a solid angle of 4 pi. If you can find a way to eliminate the light speed movement in the space around the object will have no mass. A massless object doesn't need any additional force, and and will certainly move at the speed of light relative to us. The underlying reason is that every object in the universe has a rest momentum, mass multiplied by vector light speed p_rest equals mc, where m is the rest mass, different from the moving mass m, and c is the vector light speed in the surrounding space of the object at rest, different in direction from the vector light speed c in the surrounding space when the object is moving at velocity v, but the magnitude remains the same, equal to the scalar light speed c. Both rest momentum and moving momentum are conserved. If an object moves at the speed of light, the velocity part of the moving momentum mcv becomes 0, cv equals 0, and due to the conservation of momentum, the mass part becomes infinitely large. We hate the concept of infinity. If this detested infinity does not occur, there is another possibility: the rest mass is 0. If the rest mass is 0m equals 0, then the rest momentum becomes 0 mc equals 0, and since rest momentum and moving momentum are equal in magnitude mc and mcv are equal in magnitude, the moving momentum mcv also becomes 0, resulting in the object's velocity v reaching the speed of light cm cv equals 0, mc equals mv, c equals v. Your Earth's theory of relativity recognizes rest energy, but it does not realize that the root cause of rest energy is rest momentum. I seem to understand some of it. It seems that a UFO is about converting mass into speed and speed into mass, so I asked, your UFO can travel at the speed of light, but I read in our Earth books that most planets in the universe are many light years away from us. Even if your UFO travels at the speed of light, it would take many years. How do you say it only takes a few hours to reach your planet? Are you very close to us, just hiding nearby? When an object moves at the speed of light, the length of space along the direction of motion shrinks to 0. Norton's words surprised me. Sudal added, it's like what you Earthlings say, so close yet so far away. If the length of space along the direction of motion is 0, then your UFO wouldn't need any time to travel, right? Why do you say it takes a few hours for the UFO to return to your planet? For example, a UFO weighing 450 tons, I forgot the exact number, would need time to reduce its mass to 0 at the start. This process is called switching space-time states. When the UFO lands, it also needs time to increase its mass from 0 back to 450 tons. In reality, when the UFO is on our planet, we first use external energy to reduce the UFO's mass to a very small amount, like 0.450 grams, reaching a quasi-excited state. When taking off, the UFO uses its own energy to reduce its mass from 0.450 grams to 0. Once the mass becomes 0, it reaches the excited state and suddenly starts moving at the speed of light without any additional force. When the UFO reaches Earth, it doesn't increase its mass back to 450 tons, but rather to a very small amount. Why? To save energy, because changing the UFO's mass and switching space-time states requires a lot of energy, and the UFO can't carry too much energy. Norton explained, when there's a thin layer of gas in front of the UFO, and it's moving at 0 mass, the collision force with this gas is 0, so there's no interaction. Moreover, the mass of the gas is too small to change the UFO's space-time state. UFOs can also generate a repulsive force field that directly pushes away gas. Because the nature of the field involves cylindrical, spiral motion through space, which is an intangible substance, there is no sound produced from friction with the air. Both of these methods allow the UFO to fly silently through the air. However, if a UFO encounters a planet with massive gravity and doesn't avoid it, the UFO would be pulled in. It would quickly switch space-time states from an excited state to a normal space-time state, which could lead to an accident. If there were a way to change the entire planet's space-time state, reducing its mass to 0, the UFO could pass through the planet without resistance. But in reality, it's not feasible to change a planet's space-time state because the energy required would be enormous. We can only avoid the planet. When doing so, the UFO must switch states. If our UFO is flying without any planetary obstruction, only the process of reducing its mass to 0 during takeoff requires time. Upon reaching a planet, the UFO needs time to increase its mass from 0 to a small amount during landing, but this process doesn't require time during mid-flight. The time spent during the flight is mainly due to switching space-time states to avoid planets. Sudal explained, according to the theory of relativity on your Earth, let's assume our planet is 50 light-years away from your Earth. If a UFO travels at the speed of light from our planet to your Earth and immediately returns, both people on Earth and on our planet would think the round trip took 100 years, but the passengers inside the UFO would feel it only took a few hours. You mean this is real? If it is, then your planet still has to wait a long time for you to return. Traveling to Earth must be quite difficult for you, I said. In reality, we also have to consider the difference in the passage of time between our planet and yours. The passage of time on different planets in the universe varies. This creates what we call a time potential difference. Because this time potential difference effect occurs naturally, we call it a natural time potential difference, and there is also an artificial time potential difference. If the time potential on our planet is measured to be higher than on Earth, our people would think it takes less than 50 years to reach Earth when flying at the speed of light. But when flying back to our planet from Earth, it would take more than 50 years. The two times would cancel each other out, so you might think this time potential difference has no practical use. But that would be a mistake. We use this time potential difference effect to ensure that on our planet, we don't actually need to wait 100 years to get the UFO back. The natural time potential difference between planets is usually very small, especially between planets that are not far apart, making it nearly useless in practical applications. The formation of the time potential difference is due to relative motion. Since every planet is rotating, distant planets have a much greater rotational velocity, creating a significant time potential difference. However, we can artificially create a significant time potential difference effect, reducing what would normally be a 100-year wait to less than an hour. We achieve this by using an artificial field scanning device to irradiate the space around a UFO, creating an energy field that artificially alters the space-time around a UFO, creating a significant time potential difference between the UFO and Earth. This allows the UFO to reach Earth in a very short time, much less than 50 years. When the UFO returns to our planet from Earth, we use the same method. By artificially altering the time potential difference around a UFO using its onboard equipment, it can return to our planet in less than an hour, sometimes even shorter, depending on the strength of the energy field. To achieve this artificial time potential difference, enabling the UFO to create a large time potential difference between Earth and other planets, we need not only artificial field scanning that can alter time and space, but also the ability to measure the time potential of Earth and other planets. Soodle's words were beyond my comprehension. I'll change the question. I can't process what you just said. We Earthlings have observed your UFOs and noticed that they suddenly accelerate violently, putting enormous forces on the passengers. I'd like to ask, how do you reduce the force on the passengers inside the UFO? Or are your people's bodies specially adapted to withstand forces hundreds or thousands of times greater than Earth's? The UFO flies with zero or minimal mass, so the force on the passengers is mass times acceleration. Even if the acceleration is enormous, the force on the passengers is zero or very small, because the mass is zero. With the UFO's mass at zero or near zero, the collision and friction forces with other objects are also zero or minimal. Friction, in essence, is a form of collision between very small particles, which is why the UFO flies silently through Earth's atmosphere, Soodle, the physicist, explained. I seem to understand a bit and continue to ask, how can a UFO be built? Or rather, how is a UFO constructed? You want to return to Earth and build a UFO? Whaley asked, so you can fly around in it? Soodle laughed. If he accidentally ends up on Mars near their Earth and doesn't know how to return, that would be a big problem. Then he might as well live on Mars, Whaley said sarcastically. If he has a girlfriend on Earth, they'd be miserable, longing for each other. Isn't that a common scene in their movies? I don't have a girlfriend, and I don't want to go to Mars. I wanted to retort but held back. Norton said, how could you build a UFO on your own? Even if you understand the principles, your people would need to believe in your theory. If they did, Earthlings would throw themselves into developing UFOs just like they did with the atomic bomb. Only then would it be possible for Earth to create a UFO. How much would it cost to build a UFO? I asked. About the same as what you spent developing atomic bombs, Norton replied. It's impossible. When you return and tell your fellow Earthlings how UFOs work and how to build one, you know what they'll say. Where did this lunatic come from? Soodle continued his mockery. I found Soodle's words grating, but his scenario seemed most likely. So your UFOs must carry a lot of energy. What kind of energy do you use? Nuclear energy, neutron energy, both are possible. But don't forget, during long-distance flights, the UFO is in inertial motion and doesn't require energy. Energy is only needed when the UFO first takes off, reducing its mass to zero and switching space-time states. When the UFO takes off from our planet, we first use external electric or field energy to drastically reduce its mass to a small amount, Norton reminded me. Then why are your UFOs shaped like discs? Which direction do they fly in? And what is the propulsion system like? Can you explain it briefly? I asked. The UFO is actually similar to your Earth's particle accelerators. The circular edge of a UFO is a ring-shaped cavity, inside which charged particles circulate. These charged particles have the same charge, so they repel each other, limiting their density. By making these charged particles move at high speeds in a circular motion, we can convert electric fields into magnetic fields, which increases the charge density. Small UFOs typically have a door located at the bottom. If the door were placed on the side, it would disrupt the flow of the circulating charged particles around a UFO. Larger UFOs generally carry high-powered artificial field scanning equipment that scans the UFO's shell, placing it in an excited state, allowing personnel to enter and exit directly through the UFO's shell without the need for a door. When a UFO travels at the speed of light, its direction of movement is perpendicular to the UFO's disk and follows a right-hand helical relationship. Imagine holding the UFO with your right hand, where your fingers encircle the edge of the UFO in the same direction as the internal flow of charged particles. In this case, the direction your thumb points is the direction of the UFO's movement. If the UFO reaches your Earth's atmosphere and enters a quasi-excited state, it can travel at any speed below the speed of light and can be manually piloted in conjunction with a computer program. The direction of flight can be in any direction along the UFO's side. When the UFO reaches our Earth's atmosphere, do you install a regular engine like those on Earth's airplanes to stir the air for flight? I asked. No, was the response. What we do is transition the UFO from a quasi-excited state to an excited state, allowing it to travel at the speed of light. However, the set flight time is extremely short, so the UFO flies a very small distance before returning to a quasi-excited state. It then transitions back to an excited state, flies a tiny distance again, and continues to switch flight states repeatedly. This method of flight is controlled by a computer program, or sometimes with assistance from a pilot. This mode of flight makes the UFO appear, from an external perspective, to fly at any desired speed, exhibit no inertia, make sharp right-angle turns, and possess extremely high maneuverability, with flight trajectories that may seem odd to people on Earth. Sudal corrected my earlier assumption. What exactly powers the UFO? How does it achieve light-speed flight, or how does it make its mass become zero? I continue to seek clarity. The UFO's propulsion system is based on the principle of the mutual conversion between electromagnetic fields and gravitational fields. When a magnetic field passes perpendicularly through a curved surface and undergoes a change, it can generate a ring-shaped electric field and a ring-shaped gravitational field distributed along the edge of the curved surface. At a certain moment, due to the equivalence of space-time, one could also say that at a specific point in space, the changing magnetic field, the generated gravitational field, and the electric field are mutually perpendicular. Changing electromagnetic fields are produced by moving charges, and the gravitational field produced by moving charges is continuously distributed. The gravitational field generated by universal gravitation is symmetrically distributed around a central point. So the key is how to convert the continuously distributed gravitational field into a point-symmetric gravitational field. Sudal explained further. Norton then added, on your Earth, scientist Faraday's work on converting electricity into magnetism and vice versa, using the mutual conversion between electricity and magnetism, led to the large-scale application of electrical energy on Earth, having a profound impact on humanity. Faraday stated that a changing magnetic field produces a perpendicular electric field. In fact, in another perpendicular direction, a gravitational field is also produced. At this point, the changing magnetic field, electric field, and gravitational field are mutually perpendicular. The UFO's propulsion principle relies on the mutual conversion between electromagnetic fields and gravitational fields. A changing electromagnetic field can generate positive and negative gravitational fields, especially a negative gravitational field that can reduce the mass of an object and even reduce it to zero. Once the mass of an object becomes zero, it enters an excited state and will instantly travel at the speed of light. This is why the UFO can achieve light-speed flight. On your Earth, electricity is used on a large scale, but on our planet, we don't use electricity, we use artificial field scanning. The positive and negative gravitational fields generated by changing electromagnetic fields are controlled by computers, which is called artificial field scanning. If Earthlings master the mutual conversion between electromagnetic fields and gravitational fields, not only could they create light-speed UFOs, but they could also develop artificial field scanning technology. Artificial field scanning doesn't just allow for the reduction of an object's mass to zero for light-speed flight. It has many other incredible applications. These include large-scale cold welding in construction and industrial manufacturing, medical treatment under computer control, generating instantaneous disappearance movement, establishing a global movement network, and even creating converging solar receivers to harness inexpensive, clean energy. Artificial field scanning could also produce many time and space-altering products, such as virtual buildings and virtual human bodies made of light. It can process information, read and store human thoughts and consciousness, and enable people to communicate directly over long distances through their minds. The explanations given by Norton and the others were difficult for me to understand, so I didn't ask any more questions about UFOs. "So, do you often pilot UFOs to other planets for exploration?" I asked. "Yes, we visited your Earth many times," Norton confirmed my guess. "You, in particular, have been a long-term subject of our study."